here I am going to talk about the derivation of the Larsen-Miller parameter. So, like I said, the strain rate of deformation is dependent on the temperature in the following form. So, this is the Arrhenius equation. So, if you take ln of strain rate, that gives you ln A minus q over R t, and if you are talking about rupture, then basically this is the strain rate of deformation leading to rupture. So, the strain rate of deformation can also be written as epsilon r over T r. So, epsilon r is the strain to rupture and T r is the time to rupture. Now, if the strain to rupture is taken as a constant. So, if you take the strain to rupture as a constant for the temperature of interest. So, if you are talking about a certain temperature range. So, if you for that strain temperature range, you are going to take the strain to rupture as a constant for the temperature then what happens is ln epsilon dot, which is can be written as ln epsilon r by T r. So, that becomes ln epsilon r minus ln T r. So, therefore, ln epsilon r minus ln T r is equal to ln A minus q over R t. So, since epsilon r is going to be taken as a constant. So, this implies ln A minus ln epsilon r plus ln T r is equal to q over R t, and ln A by epsilon r, since epsilon r is taken as a constant. So, you can take A and epsilon r together. So, ln epsilon r plus ln T r is equal to q over R t. So, if you take temperature onto the other side, so what you end up with is q over R is basically T into C plus ln T r. So, T into C plus ln C r T r, this is known as the Larsen-Miller parameter, where C is equal to ln A by epsilon r. So, that is the value of C. Now, the Larsen-Miller parameter is generally given for a certain value of stress. So, LMP is usually associated with a stress value. That means, if the stress value changes, then the LMP also changes. This is because, if you know, we always discussed Q as a function of stress. So, Q naught is the stress free activation energy, and because whenever you apply a stress, the activation barrier is going to come down on account of the work done by the applied stress. So, the stress is assisting you in overcoming the barrier easily. So, Q is always dependent on stress. So, Q is a function of stress. So, that is why LMP is dependent on applied stress. So, as the stress value changes, the LMP value also changes. Now, what we can also notice here is, if you plot ln T r versus 1 by T, then it will be a straight line. So, if you plot ln T r versus 1 over T versus 1 over T, then it will be a straight line. So, it will be a straight line with intercept C. Okay. So, what we have done here is, we have derived the Larsen-Miller parameter equation, and we are also showing that the Larsen-Miller parameter, why is it dependent on the applied stress, and we are also talking about how you can determine the value of the constant C. So, for determining the value of the constant C, you can basically take the logarithm, natural logarithm of the rupture time and plot it against the inverse of temperature in Kelvin, and it will be a straight line, and the intercept of the straight line with the the intercept of the straight line is what will give you the constant C. So, that is what I am showing in this particular slide. So, what people have noticed is you can plot ln Tr versus 1 over T for different values of sigma, and they all intersect the y axis at the same location, and this gives you the value of C, which is the the constant in the Larsen-Miller parameter equation. Now, one thing to notice in the derivation of the Larsen-Miller parameter is we have made a few assumptions. The inherent assumptions are, one is that the strain to rupture is constant over the given temperature range. So, we are assuming that for whatever temperatures you are determining your LMP, for those temperatures the strain to rupture, that is epsilon r, is equal to constant. So, first assumption. So, second assumption is the mechanism of deformation. So, we are also assuming that the mechanism of deformation, which is what will govern the activation volume, is going to be constant over the temperature range. So, we are talking about Q is equal to Q naught minus sigma V, and this is the activation volume. So, if the activation volume changes over the temperature range, you are assuming it is constant. So, when you are doing the extrapolation, you have to be sure that the mechanism of deformation has not changed, because if it changes, then you will also have a change in the V value or the activation volume value. And similarly, when you are talking of extrapolation, you have to also be sure that the strain to rupture has not changed for the during extrapolation. So, for the conditions to which you want to extrapolate, you have to be sure that the strain to rupture has not changed. Well, the strain to rupture could change, because when you are extrapolating data to say a different temperature, the mechanism of oxidation as an example could change. So, that means your loss of cross section is going to be changed, the material could become more brittle, and if it becomes more brittle, then the strain to rupture will also come down. So, these are some things that could happen. So, before you do a blind extrapolation of your short term data to long term performance, you have to be careful that these things have not changed. So, here is an example of how you can use the Larsen-Miller parameter, Larsen-Miller plot, to predict the performance of your component for different temperatures and time conditions. Now, in this particular question, you have two aspects. First is I am asking you to determine the LMP value for an applied stress of 150 MPa, and then using that LMP value, you have to determine the time to failure if you know that the test temperature is 300 degree centigrade and the Larsen-Miller parameter constant C is 15. So, this is the approach to be used. So, first is what is the LMP value for the applied stress if the applied stress is 150 MPa. So, if you look at the plot, this is 150 MPa. So, corresponding to 150 MPa, you have LMP of approximately 1.32 into 10 to the power 4. So, you have an LMP value of 13,200. Now, using this LMP value, you have to find out the time to failure if the test temperature is 300 degree centigrade and the constant C is 15. So, if you look at the Larsen-Miller parameter relation, you have LMP is equal to 2T ln T plus C. So, ln T can be written as ln T is equal to LMP by T minus C. So, when T is 300 degree centigrade, you convert it into kelvins, it becomes 573 Kelvin. So, ln T is equal to 13,200 divided by 573 minus 15. So, what you end up with is 8.03. So, T is exponential of 8.03, that is basically 3071 hours. So, the time to failure can be determined was determined as 3071 hours. So, basically what this tells you is if you have a stress versus LMP plot, you can use the information given in the plot. So, pardon me. So, this will be 10 to the power minus 4 in both the cases. So, you can basically use the plot for determining the performance of your so you can determining the performance of your component for different time and temperatures. Now, let us look at another problem. So, here this is a problem, this is a plot for a nickel based superalloy, and you have LMP on the y axis and stress on the x axis. And the question is, what should be the applied stress, so that the service life of the alloy at 500 degrees centigrade is 5000 hours. So, basically the point is, you use the data and using the data given in this plot, find out the maximum applied stress, so that the service life of the component or the alloy is at least 5000 hours. So, here you can use C is equal to 25. Now, this is how the solution would look like. So, first you determine the Larsen-Miller parameter for this temperature and time condition. So, T is 500 degrees centigrade. So, you convert it into Kelvin. So, it is 773 Kelvin, and then you have 5000 hours. So, ln of 5000 plus 25. So, that gives you LMP as 25,908. So, on this plot, so it is more or less equal to 26,000. So, if you look at this plot, so you will have 26,000 as LMP at this point, and if you, and that would correspond to a stress value of approximately log stress is equal to 2.75. So, therefore, the applied stress, the maximum allowed stress will be 2.7. So, that gives you 501 MPa. So, we have looked at two aspects of using the Larsen-Miller parameter. In first case, we knew the applied stress, and from there using the Larsen-Miller parameter we found out the time to failure at a given temperature. In the second case, we knew the time and temperature, and using the Larsen-Miller plot we were able to determine the maximum allowed stress. So, these are two approaches by which these are two problems to highlight the approach needed for using the LMP plot for design of components. Now, talking of extrapolation techniques, we said one is the parametric technique and the second one is graphical method. So, here I am going to give you a brief overview of the graphical method. So, there are different methods under the graphical methods, but one of them is the Grant-Bucklin graphical method. So, herein Grant and Bucklin considered the fact that creep rupture would be influenced by several time and temperature dependent effects, and hence mode of failure might not be uniform over the whole range of time and temperature. This is something that we already spoke about. We said the mechanism of creep may change and the strain to rupture could also change depending on the time temperature window you are operating in. So, Grant and Bucklin considered that and then said that the creep rupture would be influenced by that, and so it is not going to be uniform. So, what they said is the whole data that you have, the LMP versus stress data, they identified distinct segments of the rupture curve where one mode of failure might be dominant. So, they are talking about time temperature data, and they are talking about distinct segments of the rupture curve, and so they are saying when there is a change in slope, then one mode of failure, the mode of failure could also be changing. Now, they also said these segments can be described by linear relations, and then by plotting the slopes of like segments against temperature, it is possible to extrapolate to temperatures outside the experimental range, and for doing this they also use the positions of the transition points and on axis of temperature versus TR for extrapolation. So, I will just use this graph to explain what I am trying to say here. So, this is a graph that is used by Grant and for using the Grant and Bucklin method. So, you have log sigma versus log TR. So, the time to rupture changes as a function of sigma for different temperatures. So, you have T1, T2, T3 and T4. So, if you see, there is a change in slope depending on the applied stress, temperature and time. So, what Grant and Bucklin are saying, so you can look at this curve, you can look at this curve as a combination of linear segments. So, they are saying this is one linear segment, this is another linear segment, this is another linear segment, and this is another linear segment. So, this is data corresponding to temperature T3, and similarly for temperature data corresponding to temperature T4, they are saying you can take this as one linear segment, this as another, and this is so. So, on this, in these segments you have these points which are the transition points. So, say let us talk of curve corresponding to T3 and curve corresponding to T4. So, you can see this transition points on these curves. So, these transition points they are proposing that you join them. So, you can join these transition points and you can extrapolate the line joining the transition points forward. So, they are calling them as the loci of transitions. So, you can connect these transition points and extend them forward. So, say you have C3 C4 C3 connected and then you extrapolate it to C2. Now, what they are saying is, say for T2 you have data only from A2 to B2. So, you have only one linear segment A2 to B2, and what they are saying is once you have this loci of transition. So, you are extending this loci of transitions. So, then B2 is going to meet C2 there. So, this is now the extrapolation of your data. So, you can use A to B2 and use that data and extrapolate, so that you meet the at this point C2. So, now you have created a new set of data basically by extrapolating A to B2 for this temperature T2. So, similarly for A1, so you have say the data up to only this point in for temperature T1, but you know that the loci of transitions from B. So, you have B4, B3, B2 connected and you can extend it up to B1. So, you can use this data and connect it up to B1. So, you can extrapolate data that was available till here, extrapolate it to B1. So, this is basically the approach that Grant and Bucklin developed. So, they said you can use the loci as transitions and use that for connecting different segments and extrapolating different segments. Now, obviously this process is very subjective, because what one may consider as a transition, one person may consider as a transition point, another person may not. So, it depends on who is the person doing this exercise. So, basically it depends on the judgment of the analyst. So, that is one thing, one criticism against this approach. However, Grant and Bucklin claim that reliable extrapolation of the rupture curves are not that critically dependent on the accurate determination of the slope or transition points. So, one may raise the question of subjectivity of the extrapolation, but Grant and Bucklin say it is not that difficult, and even if there are some variations or differences, that will not influence the overall life performance. So, that was the extrapolation technique by Grant and Bucklin. So, the last technique that I am going to talk about extrapolation is the recent one developed by Wilshire and co-workers. So, they claim this is the theta projection concept method. So, Wilshire suggests that predicting creep life using steady state creep rates is not a completely correct approach. So, if you remember, I was saying strain versus time, you have steady state and you can predict the performance by using the slope of the secondary creep region, the epsilon minimum, and then based on that you can predict the useful creep life of a material. So, Wilshire suggests that this is not exactly a correct approach, completely correct approach. So, according to him, the secondary creep region is only an inflection that appears to be a constant over a limited strain range. So, to him, so there is a change in slope from one end and the decreasing slope leading to increasing slopes, and for him it is basically an inflection region from a decreasing slope region to an increasing slope region. So, and this inflection happens over a limited strain range value. So, for him overly relying on steady state creep rates to perform creep performance or predict creep performance is not a completely correct approach. So, he advocated the need to use information from the entire creep curve. So, Wilshire says rather than only relying on epsilon dot minimum, we should use information coming from the entire creep curve and use that data to model the creep life of the material. So, with this concept they came up, they developed this theta projection concept, wherein they suggested that the creep curve could be described by the following equation. So, you have epsilon versus t related by the following equation. So, you have these theta parameters theta 1, theta 2, theta 3 and theta 4, where theta 1 corresponds to the primary creep regime. So, it scales the primary creep regime, and theta 2 is a rate parameter corresponding to the curvature of the primary creep regime. Theta 3 is basically scaling the tertiary creep regime, and theta 4 is a rate parameter corresponding to the tertiary creep regime. So, they have these 4 parameters, and what they have noticed through their studies is these parameters are found to change with stress and temperature conditions, and accordingly can influence a change in the shape of the curve. So, these theta values are a function of stress and temperature. So, the shape of the creep curve can change depending on the theta values corresponding to the stress and temperature. So, that is why they believe a determination of the stress and temperature dependence of the theta parameters can be used for prediction of the long term creep properties. In addition to this, they also suggested that the conventional approach of analyzing creep data in terms of transitions of creep mechanisms may not be also correct. So, when you are talking of transitions, you are talking about a dimensional plot between epsilon dot k t dgb or sigma by g. So, you are talking about transitions happening, as an example, from say n is equal to 1 to n is equal to 5 and then power law breakdown, or another way of looking at it is epsilon dot versus sigma similar. So, n is equal to 1, 5, PLB, etc. So, they are saying this is not a completely correct approach, and for them there is no real transitions in deformation processes that are happening. So, they say again that the theta projection method can also be used to describe this data. So, what to them what appear as transitions are actually a result of a change in some values of the theta value. So, they demonstrated their concept through data on strain rate versus stress data for a ferritic steel, and they suggest instead of looking at several mechanisms such as diffusion creep, dislocation creep, power law breakdown as different mechanisms, you can use a single dislocation based mechanism and describe your entire data. So, Wilshire contends that the theta projection approach can be utilized to quantify material behavior in complex non steady stress state temperature conditions encountered in service conditions. So, all the modeling of creep life assumes a constant stress and temperature during operation, but it is rarely true because materials undergo thermal fluctuations as well as probably change in stress conditions during service. So, that is why your creep modeling should account for that, and Wilshire says that the theta projection concept can be a better way of modeling the creep performance under this complex non steady stress temperature conditions. So, this is the example of how the theta projection method has been used. So, if they have plotted strain rate versus stress. So, in conventional way you basically look at the low stress regime as n is equal to 1, the intermediate stress as n is equal to 4, and then you are talking about the power law breakdown. What they say is the entire data that they have for the steel, the entire data can be simply described using the epsilon as a function of theta. So, they from using that concept epsilon as a function of theta, so they used that and described the epsilon dot versus stress temperature using the theta projection method.